Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Shanghai. Step into China's world of advanced transportation and stunning architecture. Join me as we explore Shanghai's vibrant cityscape under the evening lights.
Swastiastu. You guys just watched that video, right? Do you think you know what country you just watched? South Korea? No. Russia? No. Nepal? No. China? Yes, it is China. So in this video, we will talk about China in a journal. But before that, let me introduce myself. Hello everyone. My name is Nabila Widya, but you can call me Nabila. I am an active second semester student from the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Warmadewa University. I am from the Public Administration Study Program. My last student number is 013. Today, I'm honored to present my review a journal as a part of the Ilmu Budaya Dasar course under the guidance of Mrs. Dr. Komang Triputri Andriastuti SAP MAP. Without further delay, let us begin the review. Okay, so the first one is the title. The title is Global Communication of Chinese in the Digital Era, Internal Motivation and External Challenges. The second one is journal name. The journal name is International Communication of Chinese Culture. The third one is volume and pages. The volume is 9, issues 3 until 4, and the pages is 127 until 137. The year is in 2020. The other is Yuan Shu Dai and Xing Yu Sheng. The reviewer is of course me. My name is Nabila Widya, and the review's date is on 13 July 2025. Next is abstract. The journal title Global Communication of Chinese Culture in the Digital Era, External Motivation and External Challenges discusses the transformation and obstacle in the global spread of Chinese culture. In the current digital age, the author analyzes how internal forces such as technological advancement, national culture policy, and China's economic strength interact with the external challenges like cultural hegemony, Western unilateralism, and platform bias to shape the international perception of Chinese culture. Okay, so the study findings are based on statistical data from 2016 to 2019 and cover domains including education, media, and the arts and digital platform. So, the author argued that China's culture influence is significantly strong in East and Southeast Asia due to shared Confucian values, but remains weak in Europe and North America where the cultural and ideological difference persists. The journal emphasizes that traditional government-led communication strategies are insufficient and the more adaptive digital and civilization-based on approach are necessary in the future critiques and dominates Western discourse in the global media and calls for the stabilization of a more equitable and cultural communication order. So in conclusion, this journal purposes that the global communication of Chinese culture should not merely be about dissemination, but must focus on a meaningful cultural resonance and identity buildings. With the rise of Gen Z short-form media and algorithm culture, the way forward lies that multi-level region responsive and technology-empowered strategies that allow Chinese culture to become more accessible, inclusive, and humanistic on the world stage. Next is introduction. The introduction of the journal frames cultural communication as one of the key dimensions of modern international relations. In the context of globalization and digitalization, the authors assert that cultural exchange is no longer a secondary or a symbolic aspect of a global politics, but a strategy tool for shaping national identity, diplomatic relations, and soft power dynamics. With China's ascent in the global hierarchy economically, military, and technologically, the question of how its culture is projected and received internationally has grown increasingly significant. The author began by referencing political theorists such as Lane and Arsene, who argue that the culture influences national decision making and global narrative. The digital era marked by the widespread use of social media, short video platforms, and real-time global communication that can create new pathway for culture to interact. But, however, the digital terrain is also shaped by a power dynamic, algorithm control, and ideological basis. This complexity makes cultural diplomacy a double-edged sword. While it is offer new opportunity for engagement, but remember, it also exposes a nation narrative to criticism, distortion, and marginalization. The other highlight how Chinese culture has historically been rich in the values such as harmony, respect, and collectivism. In modern diplomacy, this value can serve as an ideological foundation for international cooperation. However, China's global image has often been shaped not by culture richness but Western portrayals of its political system, human rights issues, and foreign policy. The journal identified these core challenges. The the misalignment between the self-perception of Chinese culture and the external global image. Okay, so another vital point in the introduction is the acknowledgement of the digital revolution as a game changer. Social media platform like TikTok, as we know, is development by Chinese company ByteDance, has given China new tools to shape global narrative. Yet, not to the dominance of Western platform and digital norms means that these tools operate within structure not controlled by China, resulting in paradoxical communication environment. The author points out that critical gap is the most studies focus on a single cultural products or platform, such as Confucian Institute or Chinese film. Rarely is there an integrated analysis that connects these elements into a holistic picture of Chinese cultural communication in the digital era. Therefore, this journal seeks to fill this gap through the comprehensive data-driven and theoretically informed investigation. Next is the background. The background of this journal is study lies in China rising ambition to assert cultural leadership alongside its economic development. Since the early 20s, China has launched numerous initiatives, Confucian Institute Cultural Exchange Festival, and media network like CGTN to extend its cultural reach. Nevertheless, global perception of China remains conflicted while its technological innovation are acknowledged. Its political system often generates skepticism, which spills into cultural perception. Next is the formulation of the problem. Despite significant investment, China global cultural communication has not achieved proportionate influence. Western discourse hegemony still dominates international media, shaping biased perception of China. The study further identifies that many Chinese communication efforts that remain top-down, lacking flexibility, localization, and audience sensitivity. This particularly evident in Western countries where Chinese culture is often associated with state narrative rather than everyday culture life. And also, the other proposed three core research questions. The first one is, what are the special pattern of Chinese cultural influence? The second one is, what internal and external forces shape these patterns? And the last one is, what strategies can enhance the global acceptance of Chinese culture in a digital age? Okay, so next is research purpose. The main objective of this study is compressedly examine the global communication of Chinese culture in the digital era by analyzing the internal and external factors that influence its effectiveness. The authors aim to identify the key motivation behind China cultural promotion strategy, particularly of how advancement in technology and rise of national strain contribute to this process. Simultaneously, the study investigates that external opportunities presented by globalization and multipolarity, as well as the challenges posed by Western culture hegemony and ideological opposition. Another important objective is to map the spatial distribution of Chinese cultural influence across various global regions, from East Asia to Latin America and Europe, in order to understand where Chinese culture is the most and least accepted. Additionally, the research seeks to evaluate the performance of China cultural communication across different sectors such as art, education, media, and digital platforms using empirical data and comparative analysis. Ultimately, the study aims to pursue strategic improvements to China's international cultural outreach by emphasizing located, inclusive, and audience-centered communication models in the era of the digital globalization. Next is research method. The methodology of the journal is descriptive, analytical, and based on secondary data. The author used factor analysis to evaluate China's global cultural influence from 2016 to 2019. Indicators include the number of exported cultural products overseas, China's educational initiative, international recognition of Chinese artworks, and engagement metrics on digital platforms. These data points are drawn from authoritative sources such as China National Bureau of Statistics and the Center of Language Education and Cooperation, or CLEC. Okay, next is research object. The object of the research is global communication of Chinese culture, encompassing multiple domains like media, arts, education, digital platforms, and interpersonal networks. The authors do not limit themselves to government-led initiatives, but also consider civilization and market-driven channels such as influencers, short video creators, and overseas Chinese communities. Next is data sources. The sources include both quantitative datasets and qualitative reports. For instance, the study seeks the 2020 Global Go-To Think Index report to evaluate Chinese position in global intellectual discourse. Media reach is accessed through social media analytical, the third-party reports such as those from Statista and McCann. Educational outreach is examined through CLEC, Statistics on Chinese Language Learners, and Confucius Institutes Abroad. Next is discussion of research result. The core of this journal lies in detailed discussion of research findings, which are systematically structured around three major thematic areas: the involving global influence of Chinese culture, the internal motivator and external opportunities driven its dissemination, and the domestic and international challenges that hinder its broader acceptance. Firstly, this journal demonstrates that Chinese culture its influence unevenly distributed across different world regions. It is strongest in East and Southeast Asia due to cultural proximity, shared confucian heritage, and historical ties. Moreover, China's Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, has expanded its cultural engagement with the Middle East and Latin America, resulting in increased appreciation of Chinese culture in this region, evidenced by raising influence score from 6.8 to 7.5 in the Middle East and from 7.0 to 7.2 in Latin America between 2016 to 2018. Conversely, in Europe and Oceania, the influence remains relatively low, like familiarity, while China films may receive acclaims for their technical artistry, they frequently critical for impact political messaging, particularly are on sensitive issue. Okay, secondly, this journal explore internal and external factor shaping China cultural communication strategy. Internally, cultural projection is viewed as a part of China's broader ambition to become a global superpower, not only through economics and military means, but also via soft power. With technological advancements such as widespread 5G infrastructure and innovation in AI and VR, China is uniquely positioned to lead in digital culture production. Externally, the current shift towards global multipolarity provides an opening for non-Western narrative to gain prominence. Many development nations, especially in the Southeast Asia and Africa, are receptive to Chinese cultural export. Like it's partly due to shared development goals and a mutual emphasis on collective harmony. The author also note how digital platforms like TikTok and WeChat has transformed global cultural outreach. For example, TikTok is over 80% penetration in a country like Saudi Arabia and UAE. Also, everyday Chinese users and influencers to engage the grassroots diplomacy, reshaping global perception beyond traditional state-led messaging. However, despite opportunities, the journal does not shy away from identifying significant challenges. On the international front, interests Western media dominance and cultural hegemony marginalize Chinese narrative. Chinese journalism and creators often face a government bias, censorship, and outright bans on Western platforms where presenting alternative viewpoints. Domestically, fragmentation and lack of the coordination among state institutions, media outlets, and cultural prostitution create inefficiencies. There is often not current strategy linking official communication with trending digital culture, resulting in adapted or redundant content that fails to resonate globally. Furthermore, while platforms like TikTok offer massive outreach, much of the content remains superficial or entertainment oriented, lacking the cultural depth necessary to convey traditional Chinese values or philosophical richness. The author concludes that overcoming these structural barriers requires a more integrated and flexible communication strategy on that technologically savvy, culturally adaptive, and inclusive of a both state and civil actor. Okay, next is advantage of journal. One of the main strengths of the journal lies in a comprehensive scope. Rather than isolating a single aspect of Chinese cultural diplomacy, the authors brings together multiple sector media, education, arts, think tank, and digital platform providing a holistic view of how Chinese culture is projected and received globally. The second one is the journal is data rich. They use the factor of analysis statistic trends from 2016 to 2019, and comparison between regions add credibility to the author's argument. Whether they're relying solely on the theoretical speculation, they ground their discussion in the measurable development and trends. Okay, next, the third one, the journal timely relevant. In an era of rising geopolitical tension, digital transformation, and shifting global power structure, understanding how culture is communicated across borders is vital. The authors successfully placed their study within this broader context, making this journal academically significant and practically useful. The fourth, this journal forward-looking, it does not merely critique existing system but provides concrete suggestion like move on from external propaganda to a global communication. It's like integrate we media influencer and also invest in content localization and development region specific strategies. And the last one is the theoretical integration is commendable. References to thinkers like Giddens, Dyer, Whiteford, and Skaggs bring sociological depth to what could otherwise be a purely media studies journal. Next is lack of journal. Despite its merit, the journal is not without flaws. The most prominent weakness in the lack of primary research, the study relies heavily on secondary data and official statistics. While useful, this limits the ability to capture the nuanced perception of various audience. For instance, how do Latin America youth actually perceive Chinese TikTok content? And what emotional of cultural response are triggered by Chinese art exhibition in Europe? Secondly, the article exhibits a subtle pro-China bias. Although it acknowledges challenges and weaknesses, the tone often veers towards strategic use like justification rather than critical reflection. Issues such as censorship, self-realization, and freedom of expression key construct in the global discourse are notably absent and unexplored. Third, the regional analysis, while present, could be more detailed. For example, the Middle East and Latin America are plumbed together in the part of discussion, despite having a very different media environment, religious values, and historical ties with China. Lastly, the recommendation, while insightful, are too general at times. The author called for better coordination and change strategy, but not to elaborate on how bureaucratic, fragmented in China's cultural institution might realistically be resolved. Okay, last is conclusion. In conclusion, global communication, Chinese culture in the digital era, internal motivation and external challenges offer a critical and far-reaching analytic of a dynamic, strange, and challenges involved in China's effort to promote its culture on the world stage. The study recognized that cultural diplomacy is no longer limited to official exchange or educational institute. It is now embedded in the algorithm of social media, the flow of short videos, and the emerge of a global digital public sphere. The author convincingly demonstrates that while China possesses the technological economic infrastructure to become a cultural superpower, structural challenges, both internal and external, limit the effectiveness of its effort. Cultural hegemony from West, ideological bias, and platform restricting hinder authentic communication. Meanwhile, internal fragmentation, lack of content localization, and version of traditional top-down strategies reduce impact. Yet this journal is hopeful. It is identifying opportunities is multipolar global development, shared values like harmony and mutual respect, and the growing influence of digital creators. The future of Chinese cultural communication lies not to asserting dominance but in building resonance, shaping narratives that are valuable, inclusive, and grounded in common human experiences. For future research, the author recommended ethnographic studies that explore how cultural content is reached at micro level among young minorities, and different classes across the globe. They also call for interdisciplinary cooperation between media theorists, diplomats, engineers, and artists to shape a truly modern and adaptive cultural diplomacy. So, overall, this journal serves not just academic research but as a strategic guide. It helps policymakers, media professionals, and scholars alike to understand the nuance of a global cultural exchange in the age of both digital acceleration and ideological fragmentation. It reminds us that culture is not just what we can express, it is how we connect, negotiate, and image a shared future. Okay, it's a wrap. Hopefully, what I explained earlier can be useful for all of us. That's all from me. Santi Santi Om. See you in the next video. Bye bye.